Welcome to the Costa Report, Dr. Paul.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
As I mentioned earlier, you stand for small government and have often stated that rights belong to individuals and not to groups. Given what just happened in Wisconsin, is it fair to assume that you support Governor Walker's bill to limit the collective bargaining rights of public employees?
Yes, I do, because I think the right to organize and meet and talk is something that people have. So working people have a right to meet and to organize and even have a group. But they can't use force, so they don't have a right to force themselves on others. And once the government gets involved, and they did in the 1930s with the Wagner Act, they gave artificial power to the unions. Now the unions, they want to say, are you going to take they accuse the governor of taking away the rights of the union people to organize. No, they're taking away the power that they artificially have accumulated over the years, and that's quite different. The voluntary contract is what you need. People can get together and they can negotiate, but the unions can't force things on the businessman can't force things on the unions or the working people, and they have to come together voluntarily.
I see. So can you explain that to the listeners a little bit more? There's nothing in this bill in particular that keeps people from organizing and negotiating as a group.
No, I don't know the details of the bill, but that would be correct then. Not to prevent them from organizing, it's just to take away, the clout that unions have. For instance, you can be forced into unions, you have to pay dues, and you don't know where that money's going to go. And then these contracts, it's compulsory arbitration, and you have to live up to this. And federal government doesn't have it, so I don't know why the states should be forced or should even choose to have it.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any danger with using the budget crisis, which many states face now, as a crowbar to weaken the unions in the United States?
Well, what they have to weaken is the excessive salaries of people who work for government. They make more than they do in the private sector. What I'd rather see is that they shrink all the size of government at all levels and not have so many employees than to give them clout and bid up these wages. I mean, this is a significant part of the problem, and they can't pay the wages. The states are under the gun for, inability to do that, as well as the pension funds and the health benefits. So it is connected to this artificial clout that they have by organizing and are protected by the law under circumstances where they just don't have the money anymore. So I think they have to address the subject.
So do you feel that the government salaries at this point are just not competitive with the regular sector of business?
Well, they're much better than the private sector.
Mm-hmm, than the private sector. So do you feel that was because of the power that was given to these unions?
Yeah,
in other words, to have a job, you had to join the union.
Yeah, and the wages are artificially higher, which means that somebody else is going to have an artificially lower wage, and then that contributes to the economic crisis. The correction for this is liquidation of malinvestment and liquidation of debt, and also the adjustment downward. Business people have to tighten up. They have to lower their expectations. They have to have less profits, and the working man has to have less in labor, what they can earn. And for the most part, what has happened, and this is part of the Keynesian economist theory, is that, well, it's unpopular to lower wages, so why don't we just inflate and the real wage goes down? Sure, we don't cut the wages. We even give them some more money, but it buys so little, the real wage goes down because real wages have to go down, and the correction has to be made for the economy to start growing again.
I understand. There are a lot of people that have unproven fears and, may be concerned, particularly people in Wisconsin at this time. What can you tell them in layman's terms that would take away their fears that they no longer have the legal tools to protect themselves against the vast resources and coffers of corporations? If they have a grievance and unions are weaker or can't collectively bargain, people are worried that somehow they don't have recourse. And I hear you saying that's certainly not the case as far as you know. What can you tell the man on the street in Wisconsin that would quell their fears?
Well, it's not easy if they've been conditioned to believe that their benefits all come because of the power that unions have. What they have to understand is that productivity is what creates wealth, and real wages go up only when companies are successful. When we had the Industrial Revolution, we went from a very poor era into a place where working people did make a lot more. But then when the wages are artificially high, that distorts things. So all we have to do is look at what's happening. You can't reassure somebody in Detroit that if they make $75 an hour with all their benefits, that we can restore that and perpetuate it, because it's artificially high, and therefore they go out of business. And then the states that have right-to-work laws and not forced into unions or foreign competition, they start producing the goods that the unions used to. But so it's in their best interest long term to have a job that makes less than to have a job that pays real good, and then the job is gone, and that's what's happening. I was raised in Pittsburgh. The steel mills had the same problem, and they finally worked their way out of business, and then now the car companies have done that, and we have to restore the free market, these free choices. One thing is that why labor shouldn't worry is if you have a free market, there's a high demand for labor, and there's tends to be a shortage of labor, and labor costs go up. As long as there's productivity, there will be a need for workers. So it's much better to fight and argue for the free market than it is just to demand and insist and legislate high wages.
You're listening to the Costa Report.